Hello, everyone. I know you're out there because I saw you before they turned the lights off. So, welcome to the 2024-2025 Inprint Margaret Root Brown reading series, tonight featuring Ta-Nehisi Coates with his new book, The Message, in conversation with renowned author and Rice professor Kiese Laymon. Thank you. We welcome Ta-Nehisi back to this series, in which he last appeared in October 2019 before a sellout crowd with his debut novel, The Water Dancer, and we have a sellout once again tonight. Thank you all for being here. Thank you. You guys, thank you. My name is Rich Levy. I'm Executive Director of Inprint. And thank you. Since many of you here tonight, or at least a few of you I know, are new to Inprint, I'm going to tell you a little bit about us. The mission of Inprint is to inspire readers and writers by fostering the art of creative writing. We value freedom of expression, and while we appreciate that art and politics are intimately related, our focus is on the literary arts. In an age when politics often pull us apart, we believe it is more important than ever to focus on art's ability to bring us together, and even in the context of divisive issues, we remain committed to the power of the written word to reaffirm our shared humanity. Since its inception in 1980, the Inprint Margaret Root Brown reading series has featured more than 400 writers from 39 countries, including winners of 13 Nobel Prizes, 73 Pulitzer Prizes, 67 National Book Awards, and 19 Booker Prizes, as well as 23 U.S. Poets Laureate. And this series is accessible to all. General admission is usually $5, the same price as in 1980, and free for students and senior citizens, except for an occasional reading like tonight's, when the ticket includes the book. Next up, on December 2nd, the Monday after Thanksgiving at the Alley, we welcome Rachel Kushner, who is, according to George Saunders, a young master. Kushner, twice a finalist for the National Book Award and the Booker Prize, comes to us with her new novel, Creation Lake. She'll be in conversation with author, playwright, poet Krista Forster. General admission tickets for this reading are currently on sale at inprint.org. And in the new year, we'll present Yuri Herrera, Jennifer Chang, Naomi Shihab Nye, Emma Donahue, Katie Kitamura, Karen Russell, all great writers. We also invite you to the Inprint Book Club, which focuses on books by authors in this series. On December 8th, it's Dancy Senna's Colored Television. Our Inprint Escritores en la Casa series features top authors in Spanish, and the Inprint Cool Brains series brings to town the nation's leading middle grade authors with free books for kids and bus scholarships. We also offer Inprint Writers Workshops for aspiring authors and free workshops across the city for senior citizens, K-12 teachers, healthcare providers, and the incarcerated, so that they may tell their stories, plus our archive of readings, support for emerging authors, and more at inprint.org. The Inprint Margaret Root Brown reading series is made possible in part by the National Endowment for the Arts. Inprint also receives invaluable support from the Brown Foundation, This series is named for one of its founders, the Jerry C. Deering Family Foundation, Houston Endowment, the City of Houston through the Houston Arts Alliance, and the Texas Commission on the Arts. Special thanks to Wynn Park. After Ta-Nehisi reads from the message, he'll converse with Kiese Laymon, a writer from Jackson, Mississippi, author of the novel Long Division and the essay collection How to Slowly Kill Yourself and Others in America. Laymon's best-selling book, Heavy, an American memoir, won the Carnegie Medal for excellence in nonfiction, the Isherwood Prize for autobiographical prose, and was named one of the 50 best memoirs of the past 50 years by the New York Times. He is the Libby Sheehan Moody Professor of Creative Writing and English at Rice University. We're delighted Kiese is with us tonight. We're also grateful to our friends at Kindred Stories, Houston's, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. You guys are great. I want to stay up here for a while. I'll get out of here, I promise. Houston's wonderful Black independent bookstore. They're on-site selling books. They're located in the grand foyer upstairs. They're offering a 10% discount on the message. They have other titles for sale as well by Ta-Nehisi and Kiese. Please note that there won't be a book signing tonight, and please silence or turn off your lovely cell phones. Thank you. Ta-Nehisi Coates' work has been hailed by Toni Morrison as required reading. A MacArthur Fellow, he is author of the best-selling books The Beautiful Struggle, We Were 8 Years in Power, and Between the World and Me, an essay in the form of a letter to his son, which was a #1 New York Times bestseller that won the National Book Award and an NAACP Image Award. Publishers Weekly called his novel, The Water Dancer, bold and dazzling, and novelist Ezi Adujan wrote, Coates balances the horrors of slavery against the fantastical, but in the end, this is a novel interested in the psychological effects of slavery, a grief Coates is especially adept at parsing. He is also the writer of numerous award-winning issues of Marvel's Black Panther and Captain America comic series. His new book of intertwining essays, The Message, a New York Times bestseller, is addressed to his writing students at Howard University. The book uses as its starting point George Orwell's classic essay, Why I Write, but Coates soon found himself grappling with deeper questions about how our stories expose and distort our realities. According to Oprah Daily, The Message is an urgent reminder that politics is the art of possible, but art creates the possible in politics. Please give a warm Houston welcome to Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Thank you. Wow. 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 I wish I could see you. But I take it as evidence that you are out there. You're welcome. I had this vision that maybe they're playing an applause track or something like that. And there's nobody there. You know. First of all, I say this a lot, and I hope I keep saying it. No writer is entitled to an audience. I always tell my students that you're not entitled to an audience. And so the fact that you're here, that you're here with me tonight, where you could be doing so many other things, you could be watching Monday Night Football or whatever, and yet here you are. I just want to thank you for that. My brother Kiese is not out here yet. He'll be out here in a second. But so that you don't have to see a black man blush, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you how much of an honor it is to be here with him. Kiese is one of these, yeah. This is a book about writing, and Kiese is like one of these writers who writes things, and you wish you could have done it. And it's not just that you wish you could have done it, you don't know how he did it. I had the great honor, and I won't go on too long, brother, I promise, but I had the great honor of editing him for a piece for Vanity Fair, and which by editing, I mean he sent it in and we published it. For guest edition. And the reason why is like, how do you begin to edit it? Because it's like, this man like caught the rhythm, that we all have in our head if we're doing it right, and he just ran with it, man, and there are very, very few writers that are that gifted. And so, to have him as, an interlocutor here in Houston where he's a professor and a teacher himself is quite the honor. So I want to make sure I say that to my brother. I will read very quickly from the message, and I'm going to read from the most controversial chapter that everybody is talking about. Which will be my journey to South Carolina. It's a book, man. Come on, it's a whole book. It's a whole book. Palestine's just in the back part. It's a whole book. And I'll just say really, it's written as a whole book. Things flow into each other. They're related to each other. So this is from chapter 3, Bearing the Flaming Cross. And he begins with the following epigraph. The only book learning we ever got was when we stole it. Master brought some slaves from Cincinnati that had worked in white folks' houses. They had stole a little learning, and when they came to our place, they passed on to us what they knew. We wasn't allowed no paper and pencil. I learned all my ABCs without it. I knows how to read and ain't never been in a schoolroom in my life. There was one woman by the name of Aunt Sylvia. She was so smart, she foreknowed things before they took place. Anonymous. A few years back, when I was in Baltimore for the holidays, I found myself flipping through some of my old childhood effects. It was Christmas Day. My family had just finished eating and was preparing to gather at my sister's place around the corner for drinks, laughter, stories, and general merriment. I wandered away from the party and into a back room that was once an office for my father's small publishing company, and that my mother now uses for storage. There were boxes stacked and a bookshelf that held random papers and a couple of ragged black and white composition books that I recognized as my own. I opened one of the books and found pages covered with the chicken scratches that drove all my elementary school teachers to fits. Words smashing into each other, letters collapsing down the blue lines of the page. I stopped on a page with the heading, Math. There were 2 lines of addition and subtraction, but the numbers, instead of finding their place in the operation, seemed to be engaged in a kind of battle royale. I flipped to another page where I had attempted to complete an ostensibly simple task, copy a series of sentences into my notebook. I might as well have been copying Sanskrit. And there at the bottom, I saw a note written in lipstick red. Ta-Nehisi was restless today. He had problems following directions. The page was dated 2/18/82. I was 6 years old, and I had already begun to suspect that something was wrong with me. It was very hard to avoid this conclusion. I was, by everyone's light, a bright enough child. I tested well. When bored, I read on my own. When my classmates stumbled their way through the weekly reader, I glided across multi-syllabic words. Irony right there. That's what I get for bragging. Multisyllabic. But when it came to fulfilling the basics of what school required, sitting in my chair, paying attention to directions, walking in single file, raising my hand for the lavatory pass, packing the correct number of pencils, sharpeners, and erasers, I could not cope. Elementary turned to middle and then high school, pencils to pens, rulers to protractors, but my performance was frozen in time. My report cards offered testimony about a problem child who shouldn't have been, a kid who was seemingly smart and yet restless, who wasted time, whose conduct needed improvement, who could not follow directions. I've always been ashamed of this sense that I did less with more, that I had one job and could not complete it. Looking at those composition books reminded me of that shame, which was connected not just to my own vague expectations, but to the more concrete objectives laid out by my struggling parents. I wanted them to be proud of me. And even if I did not have the words for it back then, I felt the weight of their disappointment. I guess I should add that I've showed those notebooks to a few friends who have told me that the ADHD screams off the page. Those friends are all younger than me, and like you, were born into an era of therapy, counseling, and drugs. The fact that even now, at age 48, it takes all my concentration to handwrite a sentence within the appointed lines of my reporting notebooks, that I must write in capital letters so that the words are legible to me later, lends credence to their case. Sometimes I wonder how I got out. That is, how in God's name a child who could barely write his own name in a straight line could become a writer. I guess the obvious answer is the wonder that is the word processor. But when I was young, it was not at all clear that a coming technology might save me. School was not just a place of instruction, it was a first and last chance. Black boys who failed at school did not, from what I saw, go on to better things. More often, they did not go on at all. I think that what we were being taught was less a body of knowledge than a way to be in the world, orderly, organized, attentive to direction. There's nothing wrong with deploying those skills. In fact, I've learned the hard way how useful they can be. What is wrong is their fetishization, the way they were allowed to outrank the actual body of knowledge held within algebra or English lit. The result was that learning felt like a kind of bait and switch. And this frustrated me because I truly did love to learn. It just so happened I learned best away from my school desk, where ideas and concepts could be made tangible. I loved our trips to the Walters Art Museum, the Maryland Science Center, or the National Aquarium. I loved projects and book reports where I was free to make the knowledge my own as I best knew how. In third grade, I was placed in a science class for gifted children. I remember one of my early assignments, demonstrate the concept of biological adaptation by imagining and crafting an animal that had evolved in response to its environment. My mother, ever the artist, purchased paint, gathered up old copies of the Baltimore Sun, and showed me how to make paper mache. So armed, I produced a shark-like fish painted different shades of blue and black to show its adaptation, the ability to change colors as it made its way through the ocean. I had learned, and so indelible was this lesson that even now, whenever I read the word adaptation, I see my imaginary shark down there in the depths. Even now in my studies of foreign language, to commit a word to memory, I must see it operate in multiple sentences associated with an image, or better yet, a story. A few years back, I had to study 7th grade math for research and found that I could only make the information stick by pulling the numbers out of the air and matching them with the world I knew, so that the integer, -236, became a business loan, keys of Coke on consignment, a sharecropper trembling at the plantation counter store. What I am saying is that, like many people, I best remember a concept when I can analyze it and place it in the real world. In this, I am fortunate to have found writing, a form that must make the abstract and distant into something tangible and felt. Thank you.
Oh, how y'all doing? Did you appreciate that you couldn't see him?
You said what?
Did you appreciate that you couldn't see him?
I just kind of let it go.
Okay, okay. Let me just start by saying thank Houston for coming out tonight. Thank Insight for making this possible. Rich, particularly, I appreciate your leadership. I don't think we can do what we're going to try to do tonight without thanking Students for Justice in Palestine. And I just want to give a selfish thanks to Kindred Stories. I moved here probably about 3 years ago, and I drove here overnight from Mississippi, and when I got to my house over in the 3rd Ward, I don't live there no more. I want to front, but I don't live there no more, but I did at the time. A man named Leroy came up and knocked on my window as soon as I pulled in the driveway, and I was like, damn, that's how they do in Houston. They just knock, knock. And he was like, Kiese. I was like, how does this motherfucker know my name? And he was like, hey, man. And the first question he asked me was about the casinos in Mississippi. I can't lie. Second question he asked me was, had you been to Kindred Stories? And within a week, this is not hyperbole, Kindred Stories made me feel at home. And in that moment in time when I wasn't happy to be in Houston necessarily, they saved my world. So I wanted to start there with you because so much of this book, and we're going to talk about the book in a little bit of time we have tonight. We're not going to focus on what everybody else is focused on, but we're going to talk about the book. I'm interested, Ta-Nehisi, if you can talk to us about the importance of Black bookstores in saving the world. So much of what you do in this book is really a sort of wet, textured plea for those of us who call ourselves writers, and particularly those folks who call themselves journalists, to save the world. I want to talk about that a lot tonight, but can we first talk about the importance of Black bookstores in the process of saving the world for all writers, and particularly Black writers?
Yeah, so I guess if I think about like this book as a whole and I think about the context of it, part of it, you know, it has many threads, but one of those threads is a great annoyance at the degradation of the humanities and writing in particular, at the expense of, you know, science, math, tech, et cetera. It's not that anything is wrong with any of those at all. I mean, everybody in knowledge has its, you know, gifts. But this notion that a kid that goes to a university and is, you know, paying, you know, $50,000 a year, whatever universities charge to major in poetry, has made some like grand error, you know, in their life, annoys me. It also annoys me that the kid has to pay $50,000 a year.
No, that's right.
But the poetry part doesn't annoy me at all.
Yeah.
Like in no respect. What we seek to do is to communicate ideas with maximum clarity.
Yes.
And that's a skill that as many people in the world should have as possible. And people who generally do not want to see the world changed or transformed, they thrive on obscuring the world. They thrive on not seeing it clarified.
Right.
And our history is essentially being born into a pit, you know, like a pit of lies, and you're trying to figure out who you are. You know, like a lot of this book is about that, like trying to figure out who am I, you know, and who am I in relation to this person who did this thing to me? How do I define myself without that person there? Like, who am I? And, you know, that has been, something that, as you know, we've pursued for years, and Black bookstores have been a place for that.
Absolutely.
They were, a place for it, when my dad, came to Baltimore. It was a place where my dad ran his own, Black bookstores. My dad was in the Black Panther Party and also was a bookstore owner and later a publisher. He has an FBI file for being in the Panther Party and an FBI file for being a bookstore owner.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, and that's not a mistake.
Right.
And I think sometimes maybe we don't ourselves understand the radical import of what we're doing.
Absolutely.
And our enemies do.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, clap that up. Also, I want to get you loose to start with that question, but I also just want to say, brother, thank you for taking seriously this art that some of us feel called to do. I think you have shown us the importance of clarity, the importance of deeply understanding craft, the importance of the craft of connecting what we actually create to listener, which sometimes can be different than the craft of creating on the page. I want to thank you for not clotheslining that white boy on CBS. Because if ever there was a white boy who needed clotheslining, and I say that because actually in that, some of us probably spend too much time breaking down scenes. And one of the things that I'm most jealous of is your ability to comport yourself and make the right decision in the moment. And to me, if you would have done to that person what they deserve, one, we wouldn't be here right now. And two, what you did to that brother, I don't think you could have done had you not written the books that you've written. You were prepared, and they didn't think you were going to be prepared. I don't know why. I don't know why. Why did they not think you were going to be prepared?
I think.
I mean that. That's a sincere question. Who did they think they were interviewing?
So I'll say a couple things. You made me think of this great Matt Barnes, who used to play for Golden State Warriors and a bunch of other things. He has this great line where he says, violence is never the answer, but sometimes it is. So he made me think of that. But no, there's a good reason why. There's a good reason why. And that's the perfect question, Kiese. So Jack Johnson, turn of the century, is going up and down the country and around the world and beating every challenger that they put in front, just killing people. He is a masterful boxer, a masterful athlete.
Right.
And he's demonstrating. This is a time when, race and ideas of manhood and machismo are much more intertwined. And so it's felt that, Black men don't have the comportment, the nobility, because that's what boxing was associated before we started dominating it. That's how people thought about it, right? And so it was, he was, breaking all of these taboos, and they kept calling, as you guys know, and Kiese, kept calling for a white hope to come in and take on Jack Johnson. And they get Jim Jeffries in there, and Jeffries is like 12 years older than Johnson.
Right.
And somehow white folks got it in their head that this man that was older, smaller, and past his time was going to beat Jack Johnson. Right. I tell that story to say that they got it in their head because they believed their own hype.
Absolutely.
You tell yourself a story enough times about people, and you start to believe it.
Right.
And so it's like that. It's so wild because I wasn't even that angry about the interview.
Yeah.
I say that because it's like you say, let's take away his awards, let's take the name off, let's take the jacket, all of that. And you can do that. You can do that. But I'm still me though.
Right.
Like after all of that is done, I'm still me, and you still have to ask me these questions, and we still have to engage.
Absolutely.
But people think that they gave you the awards.
Right.
Like somebody else might have said, how did he get these awards?
Right.
Like, what did he do?
Right.
You know what I mean? And then they would, that's what I would say. I would say this person has a lot of awards.
Right.
Let me see what they did to get them, and then that might would, frame how you, approach the person. But if you think that they just, excuse my language, give niggas shit.
Right.
They just hand it out,
Right.
because you're black, here, take this.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then you would not think that I had done the research. You would not think that I had thought about all of these questions that you might ask. You would think you're the first person that, has said that.
Right.
And that I have not considered it and I haven't thought about it. It would never occur to you.
Right.
And so it's natural. Folks, they just start to believe it. They start to believe, their own hype about you. You know?
No, I think it's forever a YouTube replay for me. No, forever. I mean, and in this season of Black L's, like, we need those W's, my brother. I mean, y'all laughing, but I'm dead serious. But one of the things I want to talk about is also what happens in this is like, right, like you can't believe that a nigga was doing such and such, but you also have like this false, vaporous belief in self. Yeah. I'm like, brother, you're paid to wear a suit and read a teleprompter. This man right here is going to go down as one of the greatest writers in the history of English literature. So let's get to it and let's work a little bit up here today, man. I invited you to a college I used to teach at for a little under 20 years ago called Vassar College. You and Chris Jackson. We were all in different positions. I remember, I think I picked up Chris first on the train. You came up a little later. You did the event. You were so generous with my students. I remember afterwards at some point, I don't know if you or Chris needed some something from the store. We went to the store, just walking around the store. Times have changed, a little bit different here now. And one of the things that I really want to start by asking you, Ta-Nehisi, is I want to bring some of your previous work into this Luminous book, not just Luminous chapter, Luminous book. And I just want to ask directly, what does this nation owe Palestinians that it also owes Black Americans? And can you talk about the differences?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first thing is we owe them life.
Absolutely.
We owe them life.
Absolutely.
We owe them freedom.
Yes.
And as banal as that might sound, we have not gotten to a place where we feel that we owe either group that.
Right.
And maybe right now, and this just might be where I am right now, that feels particularly acute for Palestinians.
Yes.
This is bad. I mean, this is bad. This is really, really, really bad. One of the blessings of this book tour is, of course, there have been some confrontational interviews, but in every city I've been in, just about, maybe like half of them, including Houston, I have had opportunities and the privilege of sitting in intimate spaces with Palestinians. Just did it earlier today. And you sit with somebody and they tell you, as was said to me today, I'm from Gaza and 200 members of my family are dead.
Right. And
A bomb was dropped on one group of my family and everybody died, except the 10-year-old. And they took the 10-year-old to the hospital, and the 10-year-old was hollering for his parents, and then he died.
Right.
You know, and this is like us, right? This is us. This is every single one of us. It's every single one of us in here. Because it's not just that we sell them the bombs.
Right.
There is not a single fighter plane that drops a bomb on Gaza that does not come from this country. This is our genocide. it's not just that it is our genocide, it is our genocide in service of apartheid. Right. This cannot be denied. This is not a debate point. This is the truth. Now, you can debate about what you want to call it. You know, you can say, well, I think apartheid is this and apartheid, but in terms of the actual practices of what is, this is not a debate point, man.
Right.
And there are a lot of people who would try to make you feel stupid. Like the roads are not segregated. Like the justice system is not literally segregated on the West Bank. Like the water is not actually segregated. Like the citizens, the quote-unquote Palestinian citizens, I put that in quote-unquote, Palestinian citizens of Israel do not exist on a lesser legal tier than the Jewish citizens. These are facts. These are facts. And when people say Israel has the right to defend itself, you must then say, what is it defending? What is it defending? When people say Israel has a right to exist, you must ask, to what end? Because I believe people had a right to exist. And I believe that states are just made by people. States are mere tools. Any state. Right. It's not particular Israel. Right. States are tools. They're imagined up by people. To what end? Well, I think states should be imagined up to the end of guaranteeing freedom, happiness, and human life. Yes. And when you find a state that is working to guarantee that to half the people and is inflicting pain on the other, you are correct to question the nature of that state. Right. You must. Right. And when you find yourself, as every single one of us finds ourselves at this moment, where your tax dollars is subsidizing that, subsidizing a 10-year-old baby whose last moments is to scream for his dead parents in defense of apartheid, while you are part of a country that runs around pretending like Martin Luther King is its patron saint, pretending like the civil rights movement is somehow part of its bountiful heritage of freedom, that emancipation is part of its bountiful heritage of freedom, while it is subsidizing segregation at this moment. You gotta ask questions about that, man. Right. You got to, and I know this is like painful, because I know like we're 2 weeks from the election, you know, and some folks, you know, feel that it should have went, you know, one community should have went one way or should have supported, you know, one thing or the other. We are here now. We are here now, man. And we about to be in a world of pain. And some of us already were in a world of pain. Right. A world of existential pain. And so for me, I guess Kiese, what I think about and what I thought about when I was writing this book was, frankly, not what America owed Black folks or Palestinians, but what I owed Palestinians. What I as a writer owed them. What I as a Black American bearing a certain heritage owed them. What I as an American owed them. And, you know, like, the last half of this book was really my attempt to grapple with that.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that has been woefully exciting to watch, I think misreading is sort of exciting, is the way people have read this book, isolated the book as into one essay, and then talked about Ta-Nehisi doesn't have the context to describe what you actually saw and experienced. One of the problems I have with that is that this is a book. There are 2 chapters that precede the chapter that most people want to talk about. The context is there. What do you make of the fact that people do not want to talk about the context that you have laid bare in a book? There's 2 chapters that precede the chapter. What do we do with that?
I mean, a couple things. I mean, what I would say is, to give the argument just a very tiny amount of credit, the last portion of this book is probably the most hot and alive portion of it. Like, it's the happening right now.
Right.
And the stakes are definitely the highest. I think some people think there are reasons to practice apartheid.
Yeah.
I think they think there are good reasons.
Right.
I think some people think there are good reasons to, drop bombs on hospitals.
Yeah.
This is clarifying for me.
Right.
Because I understand now that you and I are not in dialogue. And we're not in dialogue because there were people who felt there were good reasons to practice slavery.
Yeah.
Good reasons to practice segregation. And you would be among those people.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's no longer a conversation, which is good. You know what I mean? Like, it actually has really, really focused me on what my purpose is and what, what I can write. But I think, man, honestly, it's not even so much that people can't, for me, like, grapple with the book. The reality is just indefensible. There's just no argument.
Right.
There's just no argument. I mean, one of the things that's been, clarified for me is, like, from our perspective, we feel, those of us who, believe in Palestinian life, Palestinian freedom, Palestinian, happiness, et cetera, like we feel that we are up against this, giant machine that is just spewing dollars and resources that, we can't match. But I will tell you, one of the gratifying things about this book is I realized that the machine needs all of those dollars because lying is expensive. And the truth is cheap.
That's true. That's true.
Truth is easy.
That's right.
The truth is easy. I mean, you see it, and it's like, you want to talk to me about good reasons to segregate water? I mean, talk to me about good reasons to eat babies. Like, that's what you sound like to me.
Right.
Like, there's some things that, like, what is the context? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
By which you're going to tell me that this is okay. There is none.
Right.
There is none. This is a basic bedrock principle. I mean, I said on that interview, it's like, look, I don't believe in the death penalty. Right. Nothing you can tell me, there's no context that's going to make that, that's going to make me say, yes, I now change my position.
Absolutely.
On it. None.
Absolutely.
None. And I feel the same about, about this. I told the group today jokingly, with this group, and I said, listen, I could find out every single one of you in this room was a white supremacist. I would still oppose apartheid in Palestine.
Right.
One got nothing to do with the other.
Right.
It's got nothing, there is no context. There's nothing this group of people could do that you will tell me that will make this okay. And that's a thing that I think people actually do understand.
Right.
But if they admit to it, then the conversation is over. Because it's like, what are we doing then?
Absolutely.
And what we're doing is something incredibly horrible.
But before you went to Palestine, were you surprised? Did you have any idea that so many, and I'm just going to say, friends in the industry, friends in the world, people who would brag about having Ta-Nehisi Coates books on their bookshelf, were you surprised that so many of them were actually, like, not okay with apartheid, but supportive of apartheid?
Yeah, I was.
It surprised you.
And I will, if I'm honest with you, it hurts.
Talk to me about that.
It hurts, man. I mean, I had this kind of like really, winding and weaving intellectual path. And my engagement with Palestine begins when, I'm probably 6 years old and the civil war in Lebanon is going on. And my dad and my mom are watching the nightly news. And, they have never been anywhere near that part of the world. But they look at it, and to them, Israel is white and the Palestinians are black. And that's that. And that's what they understand.
Right.
That's what they understand, and you become a writer, and part of being a writer is showing your work and researching and footnoting and reporting, and there's this methodology that you study as a journalist, and you say, well, my and Dad's logic was way too simple.
Wow.
So it must be more complicated than that. Right. And you go so far as to trust the people who are telling you it's more complicated.
Yeah.
Because it's true in other places. It's, a method that you come to believe in. It's a style of journalism you believe in. And that was like where I got caught.
Yeah.
Because, like, there is wisdom and then there's intelligence. And we live in a society that overrates intelligence and underrates wisdom.
Listen.
You know, so you can say my parents looking, you know, at the Civil War in Lebanon and saying, in their minds, you know, Palestinians being black and the Israelis being white is not quite accurate, not a great representation of how a race actually plays out. Oh, it's much more complicated. You can say all of those things and be correct, but they're closer to the moral truth than my editors and my colleagues were. And these are people who covered wars, who traveled, who saw things, who had way more exposure to the world than I did. And it's like one of the heartbreaking things is that you come to realize is like, I don't know, man, like having all of that privilege, having all of that travel and experience and seeing things, you know, because we come from, you know, impoverished communities. Black folks have a lot of, like, we punch above our weight culturally, but we actually have not seen a lot, you know, of the world. We don't really have the greatest sense of ourselves, you know, in the world. I know I did not. But you come to realize that these folks had, you know, like they have all of the tools to acquire the knowledge, and it's not made them any wiser than your parents.
Right. Can I just quote you? I mean, one of the things you say, I just want to quote you, brother, to your face. One of the things you say directly about that is, but travel and wide vocabularies are neither wisdom nor morality. As it happens, you can see the world and still never see the people in it. Empires are founded by travelers. And you complicate that. You complicate that also by, I think, imploring your students to travel. Talk to me about that.
I mean, one of the cool things, because this book is written out of, you know, the particular tradition of black writing, and at its best, I think it gives us not just aesthetics, but it gives us morality.
For sure.
At its best, you know, which is to say your job is to use words, to put it bluntly, to save the world.
Yes.
That's your job. That's your job. Just to make, and it's not simply, yes, it's your job to end slavery, Jim Crow, et cetera, but it's your job to end it, you know, as a system wherever you see it, right? Like that was the first place I was really exposed to that idea. I'm not saying every black writer in the world who's ever written ascribes to that, but I'm saying at its best, that's the morality that you see in the tradition. If you have that kind of moral lens and then you travel, that can be helpful. If you have a different moral lens, for instance, if you believe, I don't know, America to be a particularly unique and remarkable and incredible and special and enlightened experiment, if you really believe America is a city on the hill, like if that's your moral frame, if that's how you feel, if you believe that, like maybe, I don't know, and this is why you're correct in terms of how the book is organized, but if you believe that, you know, the quote unquote wonders of the West, it's, you know, vast literature, it's architecture, it's buildings, et cetera, which are all very nice, by the way. I like them all, man, I really do. I love them. I love Shakespeare, I'll talk about that in there. But if you believe that that somehow is a marker of human worth, which I don't love, that's a different moral lens.
No doubt.
And you take that and you travel and you see people and you apply that. And so you see, so I mean, it's one of the things I've been struggling with, man. It's like, you know, you land over there, man, and it's like, this is wrong from day one. Like it's immediately wrong. When I, you know, to your question, when I went and when I was getting ready to go, I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna see something really bad. But I'm sure it's going to be really complicated, and I'm going to have to work out why it's bad. It's going to be this thing over here. And I was going to, and then you see it, and it's like, oh, it's just bad. No, it's just bad. There's no, you know what I mean? Like, it's like debating, you know, did this slave have a surly attitude or not? I mean, maybe. Maybe. It's bad, though.
It's bad, though.
You know, it's bad. You know, it's like, that has nothing to do with whether this was bad or not.
Yeah.
You know, and so you see that, and Kiese, one of the things I do think though, and I'm not saying that blackness immunizes you to this. It does not. It does not. I just want to be really clear about that. But I will say, I do think the relative makeup of the people who cover Palestine,
Yes.
especially at our most elite publications, I think that is related to how the coverage looks.
Yeah.
You know, I have talked to more than my share of black folks who went over there and they were like, this was obviously wrong.
Right.
Like it was immediately obviously wrong because you have Jim Crow as a frame, at least to think, you know what I mean? And I'm not even saying that that is the appropriate frame, you know what I mean? But you at least have something that says, wait, what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That tells you something's up here.
Right.
You know, and it's a breach that I probably still have not figured out between people who, if I am honest with you, taught me a lot about the craft of writing and the craft of journalism and how to practice it. I cannot lie about that. I learned a lot.
Yes.
You know, during the 10 years I worked at The Atlantic, I became a better, stronger journalist, a better, stronger writer, and I struggle with the tension of that fact and that what I saw is not what a lot of the people who worked there when I worked there saw.
And you know what,
and that's
man?
hard.
One of the things that just astounds me about you is you aren't the first person to see behind the kitchen, right? Like back there, what the people who run these magazines actually think and feel. You are one of the first people that I know of our generation to say an easier road to acclaim and riches is over there. The right road is over here. I'm gonna go this way. And I'm not saying that for y'all to get, for you to clap for Ta-Nehisi because as someone who cares for you deeply, I also just want to say, and as we know, hopefully in this audience, that does not come without terror. You are not just writing a book and putting it out in the world as the most important American writer, to my estimation, we have going today, and just seeing what people say. You put this shit out there knowing these people were gonna come for you. And I'm interested in how you cloaked yourself, other than studying, other than writing. How have you prepared yourself for this fight that will, to my estimation, will not ever end? Yeah,
no, that's a great question. I mean, the first thing is the writing actually prepared me, weirdly enough, because you rehearse all of the arguments. You really do study. You know what I mean? Like you study every sort of rhetorical thing that folks say and why it's being said, because you want to understand the system. So by the end, you really understand it to some extent better than they understand it.
Right.
Because they just kind of just saying it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're just trying to, filibuster their way out of it, but you actually, thought about it. And even the realization, there's a young lady, her name is Simone Zimmerman. She's in this film called Israelism. And she's talking about how she came out of Zionism. And she talks about how she was a pro-Zionist sort of activist in college. And she went to debate, a guy making, the case for BDS. And she's sitting there and the guy's making the claim and he's saying, here are the bullets, we know they came from Israel, Israel did this, here did that. And she goes back and she talks to her people and she says, guys, we need better arguments.
Right. Right.
And there must be better arguments. Like, she's like, of course we just don't have them. They must be, please tell me what that, and then she's shocked when, like one of the shocks, oh, there are no better arguments.
Right.
Like we're just kind of, out here filibustering. Yes. And so engaging with that actually, makes you, it sophisticates you, but the other part of it, man, is it's what I was saying earlier. One, it's the fact of having this relationship, this very young relationship, this very new relationship with the Palestinian community here in this country.
Yeah.
I'm off social media, so I don't really see that. I don't really read the reviews, so I don't know what the reviews were. What I know is when I go to Chicago, there's Kanafe waiting for me.
No, that's right. No, that's right.
That's what I know. That it was waiting for me here in Houston. It was waiting for me in Oakland. I mean, literally. I'm not like, this is what happened. This is what happened. And, people swallow you with love and they tell you, thank you for doing this. And it means the world to them. And they say to you, thank you for doing this because we cannot.
Right.
And then you feel the great tragedy of that. You know what I mean? And the awkwardness of that. And so I have that community, and then I have the community that I come from.
Yes.
Which I have to go home to, man. You know what I mean? Like, one of the things I want to say about this, other road, that road has cost too.
Talk about that.
You know what I mean? Like, yes, maybe you get, the money and you get to go on the shows and all of that. But then I got to go back to Howard Homecoming, right? And I know that they whispering behind me, like, hey, he ain't shit. This motherfucker shit. Like, I know they are. I know that's what happened. I know it, and I know, like I got friends, man, you know what I mean, who have known me from, you know what I mean, the time my political consciousness first dawned, who I came to this point with, and what are you doing?
Right.
What are you doing? I got a wife, I got kids, I have a community that, I have to go home to, and it's like, the cost would be them.
Yeah. Wow.
Like, I would have to leave them.
Wow.
I would have to have a different life.
Wow.
And so it's actually not as easy, and maybe not, I would go so far as to say, as brave as it looks.
Yeah.
Because if you built your life a certain way, it's like, well, do you want to have that life? Because if you want that life, you got to go ahead and say the thing.
Yeah.
Or else you just won't have that life.
That's an amazing answer.
Bro. I mean, if I go to, see what I said, and I tell everybody this is what I saw, and then I say I'm not writing about that.
Right.
Like, I lose something. I lose
That's
something.
An amazing answer, man. I want to, if we can, talk a bit about aging. You grew up in Baltimore, I grew up in Jackson, Mississippi, two very different places, also pretty similar in some ways. I grew up loving Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, yes. Tony Dorsett, Starscream, Megatron. A lot of the things that you talk and write about so deliciously, bruh, like, was one of the ways I kept my hope and my faith that if I ever made it to 50, I knew that the world was going to have changed in a just way. Because I believed in all these people who, in my imagination, brought just. When Tony Dorsett ran that thing 99 miles, you couldn't tell me he wasn't doing it for us. What do we do as young black boys who became 50-year-old, you're not 50, I'm 50, almost 50-year-old black men who on the surface have material things that, at least for me, I could say I never imagined having. And if I were ever to imagine having them, I would only have them if the world were more just. The world is less just than it's ever been. My daughter has less rights than her grandmother. What do we do with the fact that we are here, staying where we want to stay, flying how we want to fly, creating art that people thankfully want to wrestle with, and the world is burning and our nation has provided most of the world with the gas? What do we do with the fact that we 50? Mm-hmm. And I think the world has decided that it wants to say fuck progress and justice again. Yeah. What do we do with that as black men who were black boys and now damn near 50?
Yeah. Well, I think two things. I think the first thing is we did not account for the fact that systems of oppression often allow individuals to.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Have those things. I think also we remember that those things can go to quickly and very easily. Right. I think about that a lot. But I think it actually goes back to your question, which is, I opened reading that part, in anticipation because we talked about this. Like, brother, I didn't think I was going anywhere. Right. If you're a kid in West Baltimore, 1986, and you have no real athletic ability,
You're just tall.
And no real scholastic ability, which I did not have. Like, I like to read, but that doesn't mean you're going to do good in school. Those are not the same things at all.
That's right.
The future's bleak.
Yeah.
And folks would tell you that. They say, listen, man, you're going corner dead to jail. That's what's going to happen to you. That's what's about to happen here. Right. And I believe them. And it's a shock to be here. Like just an incredible, it's not even just the things that, like when you say things we couldn't imagine, like I want folks to understand that literally.
Yeah.
Like if I saw certain things that I have today, I would not even understand them as privilege.
Right.
Because I'd be like, what? Like, why would anybody have that?
Right.
Why would anybody want that?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't even be like that was how, you know, this is what I mean by like the poverty of it all. Like we haven't seen certain things.
Right.
You know, and so what I think about a lot is, okay, so what does that demand of you?
Yeah.
Like what is that like what are you tied to? What do you have to do with that? Yeah. And I've thought this way, and I've thought about this sense between the world and me, and it's like there are things that are so far out of my control. You know, I ultimately cannot control whether this country is, as you said, going to provide the gasoline for the world to burn. But I don't want to provide the gasoline.
I feel that.
I don't want to provide the gasoline.
No matter how much they pay you.
No.
Yeah.
I got to be able to look at myself in the mirror, man.
Right.
You know, and you know, a lot of my writing is, I guess, at the end of the day, it's like this search for a kind of internal peace.
Yeah.
You know, like the ability to, you know, feel good, feel like I am at least trying to save the world, even if the world is doomed. That
Right.
I do believe writing can do that I am part of a movement that is trying to do that. I mean, you go sit with somebody who is living in a cave, and they tell you how the state is trying to evict them out of a cave. And the only request they have for you is that when you go back, you tell people. You tell people that. It's like I have to do that in order to be able to look at myself in the mirror.
Yeah.
Like it's really just that simple. Like I have to, you know what I mean, fulfill the basic things that allow me to feel like I'm at least a decent person in the world. That's small. That's really, really small. And I recognize that is not politics. That is not systemic. That is not broad. But it's the thing that I can control. It's the thing I can hold. It's the thing, you know, I can do. You know? And that is like my very, very depressing answer to that question.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I want to make sure that we also get to these 4 brilliant questions that folks from the audience have provided for us tonight. And then I want to say one more thing. How much time is that?
8:43.
Okay. This one is from a high school student.
Good. I love that.
As a high school student passionate about writing an op-ed on Palestine, Israel, I find myself hesitant, fearing backlash, or being targeted, especially as I prepare for college admissions process. Any thoughts and suggestions, Mr. Coates?
It's actually
tough.
a hard question.
That's tough. I should have let you know that one ahead of time.
Yeah, that's a hard question.
Yes.
How do I feel about that? I'll tell you why it's a little difficult. I actually am a little ambivalent about speaking out. I'm not ambivalent about me speaking out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think there are people who have positioned themselves in such a way. I guess another way to put this is, I want us to fight smart.
Yeah.
I really want us to fight smart. And sometimes in this world, we say things, in fact, actually, so that we can look ourselves in the mirror. But maybe if we waited a little longer, we would be in a better position for the thing we said to have the effect that we want.
Right.
And I do think that's worth thinking about. I can't tell you whether to write that essay or not. That's not a thing I can tell you. But I don't think, I don't know.
That's a tough one.
I don't know. Look, I had to do what I had to do. I had to do what I had to do. And maybe you, even in high school, feel like you got to do what you got to do. I had to do what I had to do. I felt like I had the privilege. I had a plan for doing what I had to do. I felt like it was going to work. I felt ready. I am 49 years old. I have won a series of, awards that dude tried to take from me. My name means certain things. If I can't do it, then nobody can do it.
Right.
You know, and I don't mean that in a braggadocious sort of way. I mean, like, what was all that social capital assembled for? Like, what did you do it for? I don't know that your calculus has to be the same at every stage in life. What I do think is that you can't be a coward.
Right.
And I want to differentiate those two things. I'm not endorsing cowardice, but it is worth thinking about what you want the long arc of your life to be about, and how you move and when you move and what you do and when you do it. You know, and so I guess I would try to distinguish my healthy fears from cowardice.
Wow.
You know, which is, you know, two different things. I know that's not the most satisfactory answer.
That's a great
but
answer.
I do think sometimes when we say, you know, hey, everybody should speak out, I don't know that we're always fighting in the smartest way.
Yeah.
You know, certain people definitely should speak out. You know, but some of us, you know, maybe have not gotten to the point, you know, where we have all the guns that we need to go to war.
And it takes revision to find out what you actually sincerely believe, right? So much of what we do, and I love what you're doing in that book, is a kind of revision, right? Of looking at the times that you created beautiful art that now you look back and say, maybe not. Another incredible question. In the message, you encourage writers to save the world with their words. How do you wrestle with what seems to be a decreasing ability of writers and facts to change the world? To be more specific, a growing body of reporting has put a spotlight on Israeli war crimes in Gaza, but that has not had a measurable impact on ending the war or curtailing U.S. military support for Israel.
Oh, I disagree.
That's not me, though. I just want you to know.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I very much disagree with that question.
Yeah. And the last part is, do you think writing and writers in our fractured media landscape can have the impact you want to see?
I mean, look, sometimes we mistake the ferocity and the violence of our opponents for their strength and our own weakness. And those two things are not the same. On the contrary, our experience as African Americans here, if it can be extrapolated, shows that oftentimes the attack is most ferocious, it's most violent at the moment when the system feels the most threatened. You know, they didn't launch redemption in the South, you know, because they thought they had the war won. That's not what happened.
Right.
You know, the backlash in the 70s, you know, wasn't because they concluded that the civil rights movement was no threat. Mm-hmm. You know, they aren't banning books because they think books are weak. You know, that's actually not how it goes. And so I know that people maybe don't feel like what happened over the past year in terms of activism went the way they went. But I'm gonna tell you what I saw. I can't think of the last time that there was a moral issue that inspired young people across the nation to shut down campuses. Like, what was that? I mean, you got billionaires conspiring on text message changes.
Right.
Now, I'm not exaggerating. This happened in New York. This is a real thing.
Right.
They clearly regard this as a threat. You know, and that's not to be self-congratulatory, but it's to understand that you are being taken seriously. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You are in like a real fight. And it is hard for me to imagine us getting to that point without, say, the work of Edward Said, for instance, without his writing, without the writing of Rashid Khalid. Like, I don't think we get here, you know, without, you know, Mahmoud Darwish. I don't think that happens.
That's a great point, man.
You know, I actually think the writing actually probably brought a lot of people to consciousness.
Right.
You know, and so what happens is we have an expectation maybe sometimes that somebody writes something and then things immediately change. That's not how writing works.
Yeah.
You know, writing sits back here. You know what I mean? In the brain of the reader, and it slowly works on them. You know, until, you know, there is a collective change in consciousness, you know, among readers. And so I think, and also I don't think the writing and reporting about what's happening in Gaza has been great.
No.
You know, I don't think we've seen actually great journalism, you know, on that at all. You know, on the contrary, I think we've seen, you know, some bad journalism. You know, so I don't know, man. I don't want to diminish this moment. And I don't want to diminish the genocide at all in no respect. But don't sell your own movement too short. You know, I mean, one of the disappointing things about how Kamala conducted that campaign was you have, for the first time maybe ever, a majority of Democratic voters who are actually sympathetic to Palestine. I mean, this is what the polls show.
Right.
That didn't happen by magic. You know what I mean? Like, some activists did some things to sway some people in a certain kind of way.
That's a great point, bro.
You know, some writers wrote some things to make that. So don't, you know, because people in power are still beholden to old ways of thinking, don't confuse that with a lack of progress among the movement, you know, here and abroad.
Yeah. And then they had the nerve. And then the nerve and audacity, fam. Like, you know, I'm from Mississippi, grew up in the Hamer Institute. They had the nerve to keep using Fannie Lou Hamer.
Oh, I saw that live. It was so painful. It was so
that shit makes me shake now, bro.
Man, I witnessed that live, and it was one of, and I don't want to focus too much on Kamala, because I actually don't think it was this is not an individual problem. This is a systemic problem.
Right.
It's not like you slot in another candidate and it's different. I don't think it is. Like, there is a thing that is wrong in the party.
Yeah.
Having said that, it was deeply painful, not just to see Fannie Lou Hamer up there, see Shirley Chisholm up there, you know, see Jesse Jackson, and Jesse was the last person to actually invite an Arab American to address. And that was the last time you actually heard anything about Palestinian rights at the DNC. To see them trot all of that out and then do the same damn thing, it was hard to watch.
And tell us we were precious.
Yeah, no,
for wanting more.
No.
Yeah.
It was disgraceful.
All right, 2 more questions, and then we're gonna let y'all do your thing for the night. I'm grateful for how Coates has engaged interviewers. I'm not gonna say the person's name. I'm grateful for how Coates has engaged interviewers who want to talk about Palestine. And I'm struck by how little interviewers have engaged him on the importance of telling our stories and how we tell them. It feels more important than ever as we enter the next 4 years that Black writers get a good sense for what Coates is trying to tell us through the message. What is his message to us, young Black women writers who will keep writing even when it makes little to no difference?
But it does make a difference. It makes a huge difference. That's the message. It makes look, this world and American politics is still living in the wake of Nicole Hannah-Jones in 1619. It's still.
Right.
Like, do you guys realize Donald Trump took out an executive order because of what she wrote?
Right.
I don't know a single piece ever published. This is not to demean anybody or any publication, but I can't think of the last piece of journalism published by the New York Times or anybody that resulted in an executive order. Like, I don't know what that was, and as I looked at it, for the 3rd chapter of this book, all of the book banning legislation, all of the critical race theory legislation, it took its language from that executive order. She just published something in a newspaper. That was it.
Right.
So I profoundly disagree with the notion that it doesn't do anything. Like, the ferociousness of the backlash is why I think one of the, we don't take our enemies seriously enough.
No.
Like, they identify something and they attack it, and it's like we think, why are they doing that? It's almost like we diminish ourselves.
Yeah.
We say, oh, it's just a book.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or it's just, somebody wanting to choose, what to do with their own body.
Right.
It's just somebody figuring out, how they want to identify to the world. But we don't understand. This is the cornerstone of their very project.
Yeah.
This is the whole ball game for them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, and I'm sorry to go on about this, but I feel very, very passionate about this. I'll just use the example of book banning, right? Which looks on its face ridiculous. It looks like something out of, I don't know, the 18th, 19th century or whatever. No. It's a very important strategy, and I will tell you why. A book is a very specific kind of technology. We are here talking, all of you guys are seeing me and Kiese talking, you're witnesses this collective, you're having a collective experience together, the way you have, you experience maybe a film together or a family gathers together to watch a TV show. You have this collective experience where you view this one thing. Books operate differently. You can't read a book in a crowd. A book demands, one-to-one attention if you're really, really doing it. And when it's you in that book, it's just you in that book. And what is happening is a kind of mind meld where you're bringing your experiences, your ideas, your notions as a kind of filter to the words that the author has written through their experiences, their ideas, their notions, their emotions, their felt experience of the world. And so this thing kind of happens, this union kind of happens between you and the author. And that union is unique. That's your union. No one else can have that same union because the other person is a different reader. And the mind meld is different.
Right.
And what they feel is different, even if it's only slightly different. They might be as touched as you, but they're touched a little bit differently. This is a very, very important thing for those of us who want our children to go out and see the world and explore the world. This is why books are so important to us.
Yeah.
Because they foster a kind of imagination. Now, if you are in the business of hierarchy, if you are in the business of not changing the world, if you are in the business of replicating order, if you want children to have the same exact values as you do, if you want them to uphold the same exact hierarchy that you seek to uphold, then a book is a very, very dangerous thing. Because that kid is in the room by themselves. And the mind meld, see, you can't get between that.
Right.
That's just that kid in that book. They are having their own private conversation with somebody who you do not know. And that is a very, very dangerous thing for people who seek to uphold hierarchy because they have to have control. And if we understood that, and if we understood why they're threatened, then we would realize that it's a lot of power in writing, man.
Yeah.
It is a ridiculous, you're threatening people's kids.
Right.
You know what I mean? Who probably should be threatened.
Right. Right.
Who probably need to be threatened.
Right.
And so that is so I just disagree with the notion that the writing will have no impact. It may not be, the kind of visible, immediate impact that we want to see.
Yeah.
But no, this I really, when I say, change the world or save the world, like I mean it. I'm not joking about that.
Thank you for not joking about that. All right, last thing, and I think it's about time that we get up out of here. My grandmother was born in 1929, Central Mississippi. She died about 3 months ago. She had Alzheimer's before she passed a year or so ago. When she was clear, one of the things that she said was that this is the worst it's ever been. And this is the woman who was born in 1929 in Mississippi. And when I was trying to understand more about what my grandmama meant and why she said what she meant, what she actually said to me was that the worst part of where we are and have been is that we never get better in catastrophe. We as a nation choose the worst in catastrophe. And what I heard her saying in that conversation had something to do with the nation, but had a lot more to do with the things that I think you spoke about earlier that hold us together: family, relationships, friendships, radical organizing. And I think catastrophe happens in those spaces as well. And so I just want to say, a few years ago, bro, you put out this book, Between the World and Me. And what I didn't understand at that time was that for us to do what we want to do as Black writers, it is necessary that we disagree about some things that are on that page. It is unnecessary for us to hate on what's on that page because white people picked this person and not me. And one of the things I felt back then that I felt like fucked up our relationship and our ability to collectively be heavier and stronger than we could be is I had a few ideological problems with the book, but really what I had was hate that they picked you and not me, bruh. And I think in this moment where we are in this world, we cannot any longer, if we ever did, look to like simulations of how these people deal with catastrophe and problems in the world. If there are public or private things that we are responsible for, I think we need to say them. And I want to say I'm responsible for fucking up our relationship early on. And I also want to say...
But you didn't. You didn't.
I didn't because you called me and was like, you want to do some Vanity Fair shit. And I was like, damn, my nigga, really? I'm saying all that to say, Ta-Nehisi, bro, like, I think the force of who you are and what you did, a lot of us, and I'm gonna speak myself, we didn't know what to do with it. All we know was it looked like this nigga was getting picked. And it looked like we wanted to get picked. And in front of these people who I don't really know or can't see, but hopefully this thing is being recorded. I want to say to you and in front of all of our friends out there, bro, like you deserved way more than that, and I'm sorry.
Thank you, brother.
All right.
That's kind. That's kind. Kiese has been way too kind. I appreciate that. I'm kind of speechless. Wow, that is extremely, extremely kind. I think that part about being from a place and being from a community, and when you're from a community, I don't want to walk in my community and have bad feelings. Right. I just don't. That's just that's like a bottom line for me. And so part of it, on my end is like I need you.
Right.
I need the community. I don't need all us to agree. I don't need that.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I need it, and it is sometimes, and that's like kind of the gratifying part. I don't have to deal with this book, thank God. You can't. You can't control who likes you, right?
Word.
Like you can't. Like you have no control over like who likes you and why they like you, or why they don't like you. But one of the good things about this book is I haven't had to worry about that. This book, it's been fine. You know what I mean? It's been really, really fine. But I appreciate you saying that, Kiese, because I just think the community part of this. We can't do this alone. None of us can do this alone.
We can't. We cannot. We cannot. We cannot. Before we go, I just want to again, Ta-Nehisi, thank you for blessing Houston. And I just again want to thank Kindred Stories for being the most important bookstore in my world.
Thank y'all.
I want to thank everybody out there who is fighting. I'm from Jackson, grew up Republic of New Africa. We say free the land. Thank everybody out there who is fighting to free Palestine, free Houston, free New Orleans. And you've given us something that we can use to change this world and change our internal worlds. And I'm very thankful, and I love you, appreciate you.
Love you too, brother. Thank you. Thank you.